An extraordinary lineup of legendary artists and emerging talents set against the stunning backdrop of Botswana's Bojanala Waterfront. This unforgettable night of music will bridge generations, styles and cultures, showcasing the timeless essence and evolving spirit of African jazz. Paying tribute to the iconic figures who have shaped the sound of African jazz, including the incomparable Sipho, Hotstix, Mabuse, McCoy Mrubata, Dyer and Bhudaza Mapefane, as they share the stage with the next wave of jazz innovators. Joining us now is Mpumi Dlamini. A very good morning to Mpumi. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, brother. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm tired.
I can imagine.
How do you guys do this?
We don't know how we do it, but we do it. We have to do it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Good to have you on the show, man.
Thank you, bro.
Let's talk about, what really inspired the concept of Diamond Jazz City Festival, and how does it aim to celebrate the legacy of jazz music?
As you had stated before, the merger of the older, let's call it older generation, with the newer generation. I suppose I'm in the middle, kind of. There's still younger musicians below me, age-wise, So that was, I think, part of the idea behind the festival.
Okay. And how do the festival organizers envision the intergenerational exchange, of talent unfolding during the event? You just said that it's a combination of the old guard and the newer cats in the industry.
Well, I think more than anything, we're planning to do workshops also there. So that's the other younger generation that's not even mentioned, because the plan was to do workshops also. So including some of the older generation musicians, us, and finding local musicians to do workshops for in the space.
Yeah. What have you observed then in terms of how the younger musicians approach jazz music compared to the older generation, how they approach and deliver their sets?
Look, the influences are different now. Because for example, I tap into everything, with hip-hop, neo-soul, everything. So that becomes a difference, but it's also because of the influence of, not even the influence, but the access to socials and the internet, actually, more than anything. So we can tap into whatever we feel like tapping to. So that's where we've kind of taken the music now as the younger generation.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you say that you tap into the different genres. You know, some jazz musicians tap into hip-hop and R&B.
Sure.
And I realize that the old guard of jazz musicians still stick to the traditional essence of how jazz music can be. So what have you observed in terms of the younger generation tapping into the different genres vis-a-vis the older generation, whether they are open to embrace some of the musical influences in their jazz sets?
They definitely are open. I think it's more of a preference thing, to be honest. If a person doesn't like a particular vibe, they're not gonna tap into it necessarily, So, but when I did Tsepotula's album, for example, with him, he let me do whatever I wanted to do. So we went into some of these neo-soulish nuances. So it's more of a preference thing than it is they don't know that it exists kind of thing. Sure.
Mpumi, can the festivals focus on blending indigenous rhythms and global influences, help redefine the sound of African jazz?
That's kind of the idea, because if you see what the lineup looks like, where you have McCoy, McCoy, Steve Dyer, Hotstix, me, who else is there? Mposibina, for example. All of those go through. There's a very clear, distinct African thing to it. It's just that sometimes the word African can become a bit tricky, I feel like because we're African, we don't always have to overstate it. And sometimes it becomes a problem to export us, sometimes when we overstate the Africanness, because it's there. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not like...
You mean overstating in terms of, just maintaining the African influence?
Sure, like we can't all do Maskandi, for example. You know what I'm saying? We can tap into it and have elements of, but the genre also needs to grow, So, yeah, that's just one thing I think becomes a concern, especially when we have to export our musicians, because then we get overseas and then we're called... when we announced, and from South Africa and from Africa, where else, for example, Salif Keita is never introduced that way. You just hear it. It's just evident. So sometimes you just need to be careful with overstating it within the music, because it also creates boundaries without you realizing, and then we end up recycling.
And what role do the festival organizers, play in terms of just integrating the whole concept of Africanism in jazz music?
I think it's how they curate the sets. So naturally, with who you get to be on the set, that kind of determines the sound, basically. It's just basically from the curation.
Okay, and how will the festival's lineup of legendary and emerging artists help to showcase, I would say, the evolution and the diversity of African jazz music?
Well, unfortunately, that's not up to the festival. That's up to us musicians. But I know from speaking to the other musos, because I'm quite close with all the other legends that you mentioned now. You know what we are trying to. I've been planning my set. I've been trying to see what Hotstix might play. I even tried to get what Steve Dyer might play, so that I could try and find a way to bridge whatever vibes they're not doing. You know, or just also what's the word, complement what they're doing also, because it's also very important, you know, because I can't just come there and play straight ahead jazz where everybody else is playing. I could, but it's not really festival material. It's just festivals have a particular way that you craft the music. Yeah.
Are there any plans to make this festival an annual event?
No, that's the plan.
You know, and how could that impact on the local music scene?
Look, it's. I think this is the second or third one. So it is. The one was postponed last year to this one.
Yeah.
So the plan, I think, is to make it. It is an annual thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the opportunities that this festival will have on the emerging artists in terms of just cementing their place and role in the art space.
I'd say, you know, the one thing that musicians struggle with, especially up-and-coming musicians, is getting to meet the so-called legends. Let's put it that way, you know? So from an access standpoint, and like I said, we're doing the workshops, from an access standpoint, there will be that access to those kind of people that ordinarily you'd just see on TV, if I'm I was fortunate that people like Hotstix, I got to meet very, very early in my career. I think I met him like 2008, because I dropped my first album in 2007. So I met him that early on. You know, actually, even before that, I met him when I was in matric. Because he used to allow me and a friend of mine, Mandla Mlangeni, into his jazz club. So after school, every day, we'd literally go watch whoever was performing. He'd just allow us to just go inside and watch. So that's, I think I've known him for very long, actually.
Yeah, and the fact that the festivals is set, you know, against the backdrop of the Bojanala Waterfront, how does that add to, you know, the mood and the atmosphere and the excitement of this?
Well, I've never been there. I've never performed there, but from the pictures it looks dope. The scenery looks like it will be very complimentary to the vibe, I guess, call it that.
All right, and any opportunities the festival will provide for, you know, the emerging artists, and just what are some of the opportunities that are availing?
There's something, I just can't talk about it yet, but there's definitely something. Like I said, within the workshop, there was a plan to. Let me just say it. There was a plan to actually record a song with some of us, collaborate with the local up-and-coming musicians there, and then hopefully release the song. So I guess I've just put them under pressure. We have to do it now.
All right.
We don't have a choice. We have to record that song.
All right. Mpumi, all the best, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, that was Mpumi Dlamini talking to us about the Diamond City Jazz Festival, promising to be an unforgettable celebration of music, culture, and creativity.